Hey everyone, this is Clark, and this is going to be your Anki guide. And I really haven't thought out how I'm going to do this, so this is going to be a big improvisation, so bear with that. But I guess we can start off by saying what two Anki decks I'm going to want to have you guys download. The first one is going to be the On King deck. This is anything with step one. If you watch Boards and Beyond, if you watch Sketchy, you're going to do Anki cards through this deck. And then the Clark IUSM deck, that is going to be, anything you do at IU lectures, you're going to go through these cards. And now my deck has cards for almost every class of first year. It has it for um, MCT, FHD, HD. It doesn't have any for your final class, neuroscience and behavior, and it barely has any for human structures. The only ones it has for human structures is a pre-made deck that I used for the final, but other than that, I didn't really make any cards for this class, unfortunately. So you will have to navigate that class without any pre-made cards for the IU lectures. But anyways, beyond that, those are just the two decks that I want you guys to download. There are two settings that I want you to change. You click on this gear and go under options. First, I want you guys to change new cards per day as high as it can go because 20 is simply not enough. And then under reviews, again, change that to uh, as high as it can go. Again, you won't be doing this many reviews, you won't be doing this many new cards a day. I just have it set this high, basically just so you have no limits on how much you can do. Now, really quick, there are a lot of add-ons that I recommend for Anki. I have about, at least 50. I will link a video in the description on how you can get all these add-ons pretty easily because there's a very easy way where you kind of download one thing and then you get every single one of these at the same time. I don't really know how to explain it, so that's why I'm going to link you guys the video. So anyways, final thing I recommend when you first get Anki and you have downloaded these two decks, which I'll also add the links to where to download these in the description, is you go to this browsing feature and then you go to the left here, click whole collection, and I actually want you all to suspend all the cards. So you just kind of click one, and then for Windows you do Control Alt A to select all, and that's the shortcut. I don't know what it is for Mac, but do that, and then you click toggle suspend. So now if you go back, you see that there's no more of that blue stuff at the side. That means you have no new cards due, because the way I recommend using Anki is to only unsuspend cards as you go through lectures. So, for example, if you just watched the first lecture of the first block of MCT, quickly go through the navigation bar at the side. So, my deck, you would go under MCT, you would go under block one, and then I have organized all the cards, by each lecture it is. And I really want to note that the curriculum between last year and your guys' year might be a little different. So, this genome structure course might not be in block one, it might be in block two, but for the most part, all the lectures itself are the same. They just might be arranged differently. But anyways, you would go to the class you just watched, the lecture you just watched, and then this just shows every card that specifically has to do with that lecture. And what you do is you select them all again. You would toggle suspend. And now if you go back to the main screen, you see there's 38 new cards, and those are only the cards that were associated with that lecture. And then you can just open them up and just do them. And unfortunately for my MCT cards and the first block of FHD, they're very kind of primitive cards. They're not amazing quality. They definitely get the job done, but I was still kind of new at making cards. It's just a lot of, text, no real context between where I got that information. But luckily, I think starting in the second block, FHD, you'll find that I started kind of including the PowerPoint slides of where I got that information from. So if we go to FHD, you can see it's just some Anki card. And then when you press spacebar to see the answer, it shows you also, kind of where I got that information. So if you want to, review the information and want to see extra stuff on there, it's available. And that is one really good thing about the Anki deck that I also want to mention. And really quick, I will say you unsuspend cards from the On King deck is a little bit different than mine. So mine, you kind of directly suspended it by the actual deck itself, kind of how it's divided up. On King, it doesn't work that way. You have to go to this sidebar right here, scroll down to where it says that AK step 1 V8, whatever, and then click on this arrow right here, and then it kind of pulls up um, a big set of resources that you could have used. So say you just watched a Boards and Beyond video and you want the corresponding Anki cards. So you would go to this BNB tag, click on this, and then from there, BNB is pretty organized by a lot of sections. So then you'd go to the section you saw. So say you watched cardiology, and then there's even more sections. So say you watched heart failure video, and then finally you can go to the video that you watched. So say you watched a video on acute heart failure. So again, you would select all these cards, unsuspend them, go back. There just so happened to be 47 cards for that video. So you just go on King, study, and then you do the card. And what I was saying earlier that even led me to this about how there's a lot of context on the back of cards is On King does this better than anyone. So this looks like a drug question, and the primary resource for drug question, like for drug information, is going to be Sketchy Farm. So this is the sketch from that Sketchy Farm video. But also there's a lot of other resources like you can click and see the first aid um, information about all these drugs or whatever fact it might be. There's the sketchy one again, and it also includes every single fact in that sketch, which is cool. And then additional resources. So this is just some table. This is a nice chart, and that is all just for one card. So that's why Anki is so good. There's a lot of information within one card. So this is basically the same thing again. Just a lot of information. I want to go to something that's not a drug to maybe it'll show like the BNB um, information. It's really just showing a lot of drugs right now. Get a, oh, there we go. Nope, this is more drug. All right, whatever. You get the point. It shows kind of the extra stuff from all the resources, and that's why Anki is so good. So yeah, basically the way I would navigate both of these decks is you watch the resource, whether it be the IU lecture or BNB, whatever, and then you would come to the browser to unsuspend the corresponding cards. So for my deck, it's going to be through this top portion right here where you go specifically to the class, the block, and the lecture itself. And then for On King, it's going to be a little more complicated. You go to this kind of bottomish part here, and then you just go down a big, hierarchy of tags. So for BNB, you do that. For first aid, you go there, go to the chapter section. A lot of, kind of going down the ladder. And, for sketchy, it'd be the same thing. But yeah, it's kind of weird getting used to it. I know when I first started using Anki, I didn't like having to go through all these layers to get just one single lecture. But after you do it like for a few lectures, it's really not too bad. You get used to it pretty fast. And I'm trying to think of anything else that I might need to include in this basic Anki lecture, and I can't really think of anything. Anki is good for spaced repetition where you start seeing the card pretty frequently and then kind of spaces that over time to where it's eventually in your long-term memory. So that's why it's such a good tool used by a lot of med students. But if you really don't like how Anki works, you don't like flashcards, it's not essential by no means. And a lot of my classmates have done just fine without it. But I personally really like Anki, and I think everyone should at least give it a try. And then, as for now, I think that's about it for this guide. Hopefully, it wasn't too confusing. Hopefully, my mind wasn't going everywhere while making it because I really had no plan going into this. I just kind of wanted to say a little bit of everything. So hope you enjoyed the guide.